Did you know that the Spellman Museum is not the first stamp-focused museum in the United States? From 1948 to 1957, the National Philatelic Museum existed in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. The collections housed there went on to form part of the Spellman's core holdings when our facility opened in 1963. Welcome to the Spellman Spotlight for July 2025. On July 31st, the Spellman is pleased to welcome Betty White stamp artist Dale Stefanos for a special program on our lawn. Dale lives in Foxborough and is one of the few artists who can count a U.S. Postal Service stamp design amongst his achievements. He will be here to talk about the process for securing the contract for the Betty White stamp and the work he put into creating it. Dr. Sahel and Mona Massoud of Weston are the title sponsors for this event. Additional support is provided by the Village Bank and Noble Spirit, rare coin, stamp, and collectible dealers of Pittsfield, New Hampshire. One of the appealing aspects of philately is the wide variety of areas in which a collector can specialize. One area of interest is known as high-value postage, which are stamps with a denomination of $1 or more. While in today's market, there are stamps priced at over $30, earlier stamps are still recognized as high value and can be highly sought after due to their rarity, historical significance, and unique characteristics. You can see examples of all U.S. high-value stamps in our main gallery in a two-frame exhibit which starts with the 1893 Columbian Exposition Series. During July, the museum store is offering a 20% discount on all of our United States high-value stamps. This sale includes a wide variety of stamps, from mint to used, and used on paper stamps, available in singles as well as a limited selection of plate blocks. The variety is sure to pique your interest and cater to your specific collecting preferences. So, what happens when a donation is accepted at the Spellman? Our museum is almost unique, not just as one of only two philatelic museums in the United States, but also for the nature of the material it accepts. Unlike more traditional museums, which generally deal with three-dimensional artifacts, the Spellman literally has millions of tiny stamps to process in an average year. Unless a donation would be a threat to bring in, if it had been stored in a moldy basement, for example, we will accept it. To be sure, a very small percentage, if anything, might make it into our permanent accessioned collection. Most stamps, covers, and albums will otherwise be parsed out through one of several outlets. This includes material to support our children's education and youth membership programs, or employing unused stamps for postage. Other materials may be entrusted to a vendor to sell for the museum's benefit. At all times, we strive to ensure that our donors have a clear understanding of how their items are used and that they know how much we appreciate their kind support.
I'm Heidi Price. Welcome to our Artifacts segment. This month, we thought it would be interesting to share some postal milestones, many of which illustrate the history of domestic stamps. In 1775, Benjamin Franklin was appointed the first Postmaster General by the Continental Congress. 72 years later, in 1847, the first U.S. postage stamps were issued. They consisted of two denominations, a 5-cent stamp featuring Benjamin Franklin and a 10-cent stamp featuring George Washington. These stamps were imperforate, meaning they had no pre-cut perforations between the stamps and were cut apart with scissors. In 1873, U.S. postal cards were issued. Today we call them postcards. Then, 20 years later, in 1893, the first commemorative stamps became available. As time went on, some mail delivery changes started to happen. In 1913, parcel post was introduced. This is the method of shipping packages using the postal system. 5 years later, scheduled airmail service began between Washington, D.C., Philadelphia, and New York City. This service initially used Army pilots and planes, but the Post Office Department eventually hired civilian pilots and mechanics. In 1963, zip codes were inaugurated, and 20 years later, zip +4. This was done to improve efficiency of mail sorting and delivery. It adds 4 initial digits to the standard 5-digit zip code, allowing for more precise identification of a delivery location. As life's pace continued to quicken, express mail began experimentally in 1970, guaranteeing same-day or next-day delivery. And this was fully in use by 1977. Stamp users grew aware of the concerns of licking a stamp, bacteria, time, taste, so the USPS tested the first self-adhesive stamps in 1974. And these were introduced nationwide 18 years later, in keeping with the electronic era. The Post Office Service launched public internet site in 1994. 2007 brought us the first Forever stamp. Forever stamps are always current, regardless of when they were purchased, versus the current price of a stamp. Continuing to stay nimble and reflect the needs and expectations of the public, the first iPhone USPS app was introduced in 2013. Sunday package delivery expanded, and in 2017, informed delivery became available nationwide. Now, this service is a free optional USPS service, allowing users to digitally preview their incoming mail and manage package deliveries. It provides users with scanned images of the exterior, address side of letter-sized mail pieces, and allows them to see what's coming before it actually arrives in their physical mailbox. So, the USPS is continuing to evolve, and in this highly technological era, remain relevant and essential to our domestic and worldwide communication. Stop by the Spellman and see representation of all of these various delivery methods.
Well, we have a first now on the spotlight. This is the first time in over a year that we have had a repeat visitor for the interview segment. And pleased to welcome back Ken Flowers, who is now the official curator of the Spellman Museum of Stamps and Postal History.
Good to be here.
Welcome back, Ken.
Glad to be here.
Yeah, all right. How are things going?
Things are going great.
Yeah.
I love the new role. I'm having the best time going through stamps that are better than I could ever have in my collection, and it's just been a joy.
Great, great. Now, you started in April.
Yep.
Took over for Nancy Meyer, who was in the position for many years.
Big
she did
shoes.
a fantastic job, and she's been assisting, of course, with the transition to,
Yes, she has.
To this new paradigm. So I'm curious about anything that you may have found that has surprised you. Maybe talk a little bit about the strengths of the collection, some opportunities for growth, anything that's like really surprised you.
Sure.
How's that working out?
You know, I think the most interesting thing to me is coming into an organization. Nancy had really big shoes to fill. She is way better at stamp collecting than I have ever been or ever hoped to be. And what I bring to the table is a broader view of what's going on in the collection. And so while Nancy would dive deep into a topic, I'm making sure that the wider collection is taken care of as a whole. As far as the museum goes, I think we have a lot of huge strengths. One of them, of course, is the collection. It's a tremendous collection, and I really encourage everyone to come down and view both the museum exhibits, but also make time with me or other people in the organization to look at stamps they really care about. I'm trying to build a museum that has a facility that's great for researchers to come in and learn and build the hobby up with the resources we have. One of the weaknesses of our own organization, though, is that the museum doesn't have enough volunteers to keep everything just shipshape. It's great that we have all this great material, but it's hard to find it sometimes. And so a lot of what I've been doing as I've been working in these first few months is trying to organize the collection in a way that makes the great material we have easier to find so that people can come in and use it more effectively, and so that our volunteers can use those resources better. Can
you cite an example of maybe a project you've been working on that has been taken from one level of organization and brought into one that facilitates better access?
Sure. So, well, first of all, our collection used to be sorted into country collection and then also these specialized collections, which were also country collections. But you couldn't tell when you were looking for, say, stamps of Germany, whether you should look in section A or section B. And so I've been organizing them all alphabetically so that you can find Germany is all together with Germany. And then I've been adding cross-reference cards, because there's some countries that are included with one section of the of the alphabetization, but you might look in another place. Like British Guyana is with Great Britain, not with Guyana. So
Okay.
you have to have ways to find those things. So I've been adding cross-references to the collection that way.
And we have some pretty prominent collections from notable historical figures as well. I know that we've talked about FDR's, Franklin Delano Roosevelt's collection,
yeah.
but I know that we have a few other pieces from people that would recognize.
Right. We
that
have a
they would
very
recognize.
large collection of Eisenhower's collection. Eisenhower was such a big stamp collector that he is featured on the stamps of some other countries at collecting stamps. So it's a really nice piece to have in our museum.
Cool. And I think we have some from General Matthew Ridgway from
That's
the
right.
Korean War, same period, of course, as Dwight Eisenhower.
That's right.
Yeah. Any challenges that you could foresee with the museum's collection? I know that we have, like every nonprofit, we have challenges with volunteers and having enough people to come in to do all of the valuable work that's being done. But what other tasks are laid out in front of us that we need to address?
Yeah, I think our biggest challenges, as you say, are around having enough time and volunteers who are skilled at various areas. And for me particularly, I have strengths in stamp collecting in particular, but I have weaknesses in postal history. So having more people who have postal history experience, who can go through some of our important documents and help us sort them into formats that are effective for the general public, I think is a big opportunity for us. And then the other area here is we have a whole bunch of stamp collectors who are used to sorting things according to the way stamp collections get sorted, and used to sorting them the way that stamp exhibits get displayed. But we're a stamp museum, but we're not a stamp exhibit, right?
Yeah.
We're a public museum, and so bringing in those people who are able to create exhibits that have general appeal and not just appeal to stamp collectors, I think is very important, because the hobby is on a decline at this moment. Hopefully it's rising up in some other areas, but we need to keep the museum relevant, despite the fact that the hobby itself is in a decline.
Plenty of opportunities for us to do that, and with your leadership, I'm sure we'll do a fine job.
Thank you.
All right. Okay. Well, Ken, thank you again for being on the show today. Really appreciate everything that you're doing at the museum and all the information that you've shared with us for the Spellman Spotlight.
It's a pleasure. I'm glad to be here.
All right. Thanks again. That's it for July, and we'll look forward to seeing you again in August.